Really crazy, the Genius Act has finally been approved, and this is the basic requirement for the strategic Bitcoin reserve in the US to move to the next level. This is so intense. The whole thing was decided with 51 to 22 votes. Let's take a look at what this is all about. But we also have massive escalations. Donald Trump is issuing new warnings. He is demanding an unconditional surrender from Iran. We have new conflict situations that we need to take a look at here. We're seeing massive bank runs. The banking system in Iran is down. Apparently, the central bank has been hit by a cyber attack and is no longer operational. This just shows once again how important Bitcoin is here. We're seeing new Bitcoin purchases and much more. So make sure to hit that like button if you want to see the Bitcoin price pop back up really, really fast. Because of all these conflicts and so on, of course, we don't have a Bitcoin price that's shooting straight up, but rather a price that's still moving very, very volatilely. So hit that like for a new all-time high, and subscribe if you haven't already. By the way, I'm at the airport in Costa Rica right now. Let's fucking go. The Bitcoin price also took a bit of a hit here after the escalation between Iran and Israel continued. Now let's take a look at exactly what happened here. We'll also get to the Genius Act and so on, and why this is so important for Bitcoin, especially for the strategic Bitcoin reserve in the US. So, from the looks of it, the entire banking system in Iran is down, or at least large parts of it, definitely some major banks. Some ATMs aren't working. Of course, this leads to bank runs. People can't access their money. They want to get their money, but they can't. And this is exactly the kind of situation Bitcoin was created for. If you find yourself in a crisis like this, you should at least have a portion of your assets in Bitcoin. I always say this about Bitcoin. Even if you don't see it as an asset or an investment, at the very least it serves as a safeguard, as a crisis reserve, as a form of crisis preparedness. Because here's the problem. If you have to flee, you can't get out without Bitcoin. Your real estate, your stock portfolio, your cash, and so on. Those things are often hard to take with you. Bitcoin is easy to take with you. It's censorship resistant, and you can access your money at any time. At the moment, as I'm recording this video, we're at around, 105,000 US dollars. It's not completely up to date because like I said, I'm about to get on a plane. Most of the time, I try to make the videos a bit more up to date, but this one was recorded, just a few hours before it's published. Fox is now reporting that US attacks on Iran are on the table, including attacks on nuclear facilities, according to White House officials. And of course, that leads to more uncertainty in the financial markets as well. Here we have President Trump, who is now saying that he knows exactly where the supreme leader of Iran is hiding, and that he would be an easy target. Trump says, we won't take him out, at least not yet. But our patience is running out here, so he's making more threats here, has already issued several warnings, and now, very importantly, Israeli government officials are saying that Prime Minister Netanyahu believes the US would join Israel's war against Iran within a few days. That would, of course, put even more pressure on the Bitcoin price. Although the Bitcoin price is still relatively strong considering we're seeing such a massive escalation here. Some people are saying we're on the brink of WW3, but who knows if that's true. And then, there was this intense warning from Trump. He's demanding unconditional surrender, meaning a complete capitulation from Iran. Now they turned on the lights here, so you can see it better. There were also some other exciting reports. If we take a look here, the Spanish bank BBVA is recommending that wealthy clients invest in Bitcoin. And that's also very interesting. I've heard several times now that, for example, banks don't recommend Bitcoin to their mid-level clients, but they do recommend it to the wealthy, the high net worth individuals. And there was actually an interesting video about this today, saying that the middle class is basically being left out, but the high net worth individuals, they have Bitcoin on their radar. But people who maybe have $1 million or so, maybe that's considered upper middle class or something. Maybe a portfolio of $1 million or so, they're sometimes overlooked and don't even have Bitcoin on their radar. But those who really have serious money, they're definitely paying attention to Bitcoin. Now let's take a look here. There was a new Bitcoin treasury company, Fold, securing an equity purchase facility worth $250 million US dollars to expand their Bitcoin treasury holdings. So, this is the next Bitcoin treasury company that's betting more on Bitcoin. We now have El Salvador, who, since the IMF deal, the International Monetary Fund, have said that it can no longer be an official means of payment. Since then, they bought 250 Bitcoin, even though officially they weren't actually allowed to buy any more Bitcoin. Also a pretty funny story. And now we also have Donald Trump, or rather Mark Cuban, who says that Donald Trump's new phone will definitely include a wallet, a Bitcoin and crypto wallet. And that's definitely interesting too, but I have no idea what exactly he meant by that. Donald Trump also wanted to launch some kind of crypto wallet, or something like that. I'm curious to see if that's what he meant here. I can't tell you exactly. And then let's take a look at the Genius Act to see what's currently going on there. What's important to note here is that even before anything happened, there were already some very, very big statements from Bo Hines, Scott Bessant, Cynthia Lummis, and Senator Haggerty. And let's take a look at why all of this is so relevant. By the way, I'm actually watching the live stream in the background right now. So basically, I'm making this video right here during the live stream. And the live stream isn't even over yet. I'm really curious to see how it turns out. Right now, the current score is 23-25. But of course, I'll talk about how it ended up later on.
The Genius Act. Today, on a bipartisan basis, the Senate will pass its first major digital asset legislation ever, the Genius Act. With this bill, the United States is one step closer to becoming the global leader in crypto. The Genius Act establishes a pro-growth regulatory framework for payment stablecoins. This bill will cement U.S. dollar dominance. It will protect customers. It will drive demand for U.S. treasuries, and it will ensure that digital asset innovation happens in the United States of America.
So that's pretty intense. He's saying that this will make them the leader in the crypto space if it goes through, and that all the innovation will be drawn to the U.S. The U.S. will be where the real innovation happens, not anywhere else. And that's exactly what, for example, the EU is massively sleeping on, that all the innovation is leaving. All the innovation will then take place here in the US, and it just won't happen elsewhere, even if you might view stablecoins very critically right now, but it's still good for Bitcoin. He also talked about in a previous interview why this is good for Bitcoin. Let's listen to a short clip of that as well.
It's the entire cryptocurrency industry, the entirety of this industry. They'll keep us on the cutting edge of the 21st century.
As you mentioned, I want to make my state a hub. We've got Bitcoin miners there. We've got Bitcoin Park there. We had the great Bitcoin conference there that President Trump attended. That's where he announced that he would be firing Gary Gensler. I think that received great applause. And I think everybody's extremely happy to see someone strong, conservative, hard-nosed fellow like Paul Adkins coming into office.
So, as you heard, he already said it. Hey, they want to support Bitcoin miners. They want to support the Bitcoin community. They had the Bitcoin conference here, and so on. That means none of this is independent from Bitcoin. It all has to do directly with Bitcoin. If the Genius Act passes here, then that's also really, really good for Bitcoin. And now it actually happened here. I just watched the whole thing live on the live stream. We're seeing tons of congratulations here. Hey, history in the making. And Cynthia Lummis, who of course is also partly responsible, says, finally, the Genius Act is passed. We have 60 votes here. The result is 57-25. Looking good, massive day for crypto. Bo Hines tweets here, the United States Senate has passed the Genius Act. So it's very, very positive for everyone. People are freaking out here. But now we really need to take another look at why this is so important. Maybe just very briefly before this actually comes to a final decision. So this is how it is now. I'll explain to you in a moment what it means if it finally goes through here. But now it's being forwarded to the House of Representatives for amendments and will be put to a vote. Finally, it will be presented to Trump for his signature. However, the most difficult part is this vote. But as it stands now, it looks like it's just a formality until it goes through. And now, basically only easier things are left, because Donald Trump will definitely approve it. He wants to push this whole thing through. As for the House of Representatives, I can't really judge. But according to Marty Body and other sources, it seems pretty safe that the vote will pass there too, and then it can basically be made into law. Because without the Genius Act, it just can't happen that Donald Trump continues with his Bitcoin agenda, or that the US government continues with its Bitcoin agenda. Since, yes, Bitcoin is important here, but Bitcoin isn't the most important thing. The US dollar is what's most important here. And once that's secured, then Bitcoin can be implemented next. And ideally, Bitcoin should also help to further strengthen the US dollar. I'll make another video about that too. There was a bombshell statement from Larry Lavarte where he explains why the US now needs a high Bitcoin price and why the US will definitely drive the Bitcoin price up to over $1 million. Exactly for that reason, because it will increase the demand for US stablecoins. How exactly that works and why that is, we'll take a closer look at in another video, because it's super interesting, the game theory going on in the background, and maybe even the agenda that's quietly at play here. You can see how they're doing things step by step. First the Genius Act, then market structure, and then Bitcoin following that order. The Bitcoin strategy reserve comes third. That's exactly what Bo Hines also mentioned in his interview, that this is basically the list of priorities. But maybe we also need to take a look at the more critical side of things here. You can't just look at this in a positive light, because while it might be good for the Bitcoin price and maybe also for stablecoins, for crypto, and so on, You always have to point out that stablecoins are basically nothing more than a kind of private CBDC. That means they're essentially a reflection of the US dollar. We still have a fiat money system here. Just because it has something to do with blockchain and digital assets doesn't mean it's freedom money. It's still, in theory, programmable money, where things similar to a CBDC could theoretically be implemented. There's already a censorship list from Tether, and so on. A kind of blacklist with certain addresses that are censored and so forth, which is something you really have to look at critically. Because officially, of course, the US and Donald Trump say, we'll never have a CBDC here. But maybe that's also because people don't want it. And if you just introduce the CBDC through another tool, like these stablecoins, people somehow end up cheering for it. I don't know. From a marketing perspective, it seems like the stablecoin is being marketed way better than a CBDC. I mean, maybe you can't compare them 1-to-1 100%, but there are definitely some parallels. And while the ECB is really going to struggle to introduce the digital euro, the US has it much easier with stablecoins. But on the other hand, the ECB can't really do something like that because nobody actually wants a euro stablecoin. Everyone just wants the US dollar. Everyone just wants the US stablecoin. And that's really the insidious thing about Christine Lagarde. She thinks the EU can somehow become the new global reserve currency or something like that. In my opinion, that's completely out of touch with reality. I don't know. They must be living in an ivory tower or something. But even if there is an ECB stablecoin and so on, which already exists, by the way, there's just no demand for it because everyone wants the dollar. For example, I'm here in Costa Rica right now, and people here want dollars too. In El Salvador, people want dollars. All over Central and South America, you can pay with dollars everywhere. If I go to Paraguay, sure, they have the Guarani, which is the local currency, but you can still pay with dollars as a parallel currency. So you can pay with either dollars or Guarani, both work, or Guarani, or whatever the currency is called. But it's also one of those currencies where you have to pay in the millions, and so on. So the prices are really, really high again. So then, like, a watermelon costs 10,000 or something like that in Guarani or whatever. So guys, let me know in the comments how you see the whole situation right now. If you still want to buy Bitcoin, I'll put a link for 21 Bitcoin below. Here you can buy Bitcoin easily and securely. With the code BitcoinOdle, you can still get up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin. Guys, see you next time. Until then, peace out.